The rain had been falling since morning, a steady, unbroken rhythm against the windows that made the world outside look like it was melting. Ethan sat in his favorite corner of the cafe, watching droplets slide down the glass and gather in little streams before disappearing into nothing. It was early evening now, the city soaked and glistening in gold light, the air thick with the smell of coffee and damp pavement. He checked his watch for what must have been the 10th time. She was late. Again. He smiled faintly. She was always late. Every year, on her birthday, she made him wait. Sometimes because she was lost in her painting. Sometimes because she'd decided to walk instead of drive. It was their tradition, Ethan waiting, MIA apologizing, and then both of them laughing as if time itself had been waiting with them. The bell above the door finally chimed, and there she was. MIA. She stood in the doorway, shaking her umbrella and brushing rain from her coat. The cafe light touched her face, and Ethan's heart ached. She still looked like the girl he'd met 12 years ago. Soft curls falling across her forehead, that small, almost shy smile, eyes that always looked like they were searching for something beyond the moment. But there was something different too. A quiet tiredness in her movements, a slowness that wasn't there before. "Sorry I'm late," she said, her voice warm but slightly breathless. "Traffic was insane." He grinned. "You're always late. Some things never change," she replied with a smirk, hanging her coat and scarf on the back of the chair. "I got your usual," he said, sliding the cup toward her. "Vanilla latte, extra foam." She smiled, wrapping her hands around the cup as if to soak in the warmth. "You still remember." "I remember everything," he said quietly. Her gaze softened for a moment, and then she looked away. "It's nice, isn't it? Sitting here again. Feels like no time has passed." "Except that it has," he said, half jokingly, but the words felt heavier than he meant them to. She gave him a small nod, her eyes distant. They talked about small things at first. The gallery she was preparing for, the cat she'd rescued, the book she'd started reading but hadn't finished. Ethan laughed as she told stories with her usual dramatic flair, her hands moving in the air, her face bright and alive. But every few minutes, he caught her pausing mid-sentence, her gaze drifting to the rain outside. There was something in those silences that unsettled him. After a while, she grew quiet. She was tracing circles on the cup with her finger, her expression unreadable. Then, very softly, she said, "Ethan, can I tell you something?" He leaned forward. "Of course." She hesitated, her eyes flickering toward the window. The rain had slowed, each drop stretching the silence longer. "This might sound strange, but I think this might be my last birthday." The words hung there between them, fragile and cold. Ethan blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. "What do you mean, your last birthday?" She gave a small, trembling laugh. "I got my test results back last week. The doctors confirmed it, stage 4. It's spreading faster than they expected. They said I might have months, maybe less." He felt something sharp twist in his chest. No, MIA, there has to be something. "Another treatment." "There isn't," she interrupted softly. "I've tried everything. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to make it real." Ethan's hands clenched on the table. "You should have told me." "I know," she whispered. "But I didn't want you to look at me like that. Like I'm disappearing." He shook his head, his throat burning. "You're not disappearing. We'll find something. We'll." She reached across the table, her hand covering his. "Ethan." Her touch was cold, her fingers thin. "I've made peace with it. I've had time to think. I don't want to spend whatever time I have left feeling sorry for myself. I just want to live, even if it's only for one more day." He stared at her, unable to speak. The world outside seemed to fade, the rain, the chatter, everything. All he could hear was her voice, so calm, so sure. "Promise me," she said. "Promise you won't make this about sadness. I want this day to be happy, Ethan. Please." He swallowed hard. "I promise," he whispered. She smiled then, One of those soft, tired smiles that broke his heart more than any tears could. When they left the cafe, the rain had stopped. The air smelled like wet earth and blooming jasmine. She tilted her head toward the sky and closed her eyes. "It's beautiful," she said. He looked at her, not the sky, and thought, "You are too." That night, Ethan lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her words replayed in his mind like an echo. "This might be my last birthday." He thought of all the years they'd spent together. The art shows, the late-night phone calls, the days spent laughing at nothing. He couldn't accept that this would be the end. Not yet. Not like this. By dawn, he had a plan. When MIA opened her door the next afternoon, Ethan was standing there with a ridiculous grin and an envelope in his hand. "What's this?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "Your first clue." "Clue?" He nodded. "You're going on a birthday adventure. I've planned everything. No arguments." She laughed, a sound that filled the hallway with light. "You're insane." "Probably," he said, "but you love that about me." Inside the envelope was a photograph of the park where they used to go when they were teenagers. On the back, he'd written, "Go where the sunset kissed the lake." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "You're serious?" "Completely." "Fine," she said, grabbing her coat. "Lead the way, birthday planner." When they reached the park, the sun was sinking low, casting streaks of orange across the water. The old bench where they used to sit was still there, carved with their initials. She smiled when she saw it, but then she noticed the easel standing nearby, blank canvas waiting, brushes and paints laid out neatly. "Ethan, you haven't painted outside in years," he said. "So today, you're going to." She hesitated, her eyes shimmering. "You remembered." "I remember everything," he said again, smiling softly. She began to paint, slowly at first, then with more confidence. Her hands moved with the rhythm of someone who'd found their peace in color. Ethan sat beside her, watching her bring the sunset to life on canvas. The sky blazed in orange and violet, and the reflection in the lake shimmered with gold. When she finished, she sighed and leaned back. "It's beautiful," he said. "It's us," she replied. She took a black marker and wrote in the corner, "For anyone who still believes in beauty." Then she left the painting on the bench. "Someone else might need it more than me," she said. They walked away hand in hand as the first stars appeared. Their next stop was a small bookstore tucked between two tall buildings downtown. It was the same one where she'd bought her first art journal. The owner, Mr. Whitmore, greeted them with a warm smile. "Ah, MIA, he said, "your friend here called ahead. Said it was an important day." MIA turned to Ethan. "You didn't." "I did." The old man handed her a wrapped package. When she unwrapped it, she found a leather-bound notebook with her name engraved on the cover in gold. Inside, the first page read, "Write down every place you loved. I'll keep them safe." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan," he shrugged, "you always said you wanted to leave something behind. Now you can." She hugged the book to her chest, whispering, "You're making it really hard not to cry today." "Good," he said softly. "Means it's working." Their final stop was the rooftop of the old art studio where they'd first met. When she stepped out of the elevator, she gasped. The entire rooftop was lit with strings of fairy lights, small candles flickering in glass jars, and a projector facing a white wall. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Just press play," he said, handing her the remote. The projector flickered to life, and images began to appear, photos and videos spanning years. Her first art exhibit, their road trip to the coast, the night they stayed up painting until sunrise, the time he'd surprised her with a cake that looked nothing like a cake. Each moment played like a heartbeat, one after another, laughter and joy stitched into light. MIA covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan," when the slideshow ended, he turned to her. "You once told me you didn't want to be forgotten. So, I made sure you won't be." He showed her his phone. A website opened to an online gallery titled The Art of Mia Thompson. Dozens of her paintings were there, each one digitized, with her notes and dates. "Your art deserves to live on," he said. "Even when you can't." She was crying openly now, shaking her head. "You didn't have to. I wanted to," he said. "You've spent your life painting beauty for others. It's time someone did something beautiful for you." She looked at him for a long time, then whispered, "You've always been my favorite masterpiece." They danced then, slowly, under the fairy lights, her head resting against his chest. The city stretched beneath them, lights glittering like fallen stars. "I don't want this to end," she whispered. He held her closer. "Then it doesn't have to. Promise me," she murmured. "I promise. The months that followed were quiet but full. They went to the beach where she'd always wanted to paint the waves. They visited a flower field she'd once dreamed about. They stayed up all night talking about what came after life, what love meant when time was almost gone. And when the pain grew worse, Ethan was there, reading to her, holding her hand, filling her small apartment with music and light. They celebrated every day like it was her birthday, because in a way, it was a day she was still here, still breathing, still painting small miracles into the world. Then, one morning, she didn't wake up. She lay in bed, the first rays of sunlight touching her face. She looked peaceful, almost smiling. Ethan sat beside her for a long time, his hand in hers, the silence stretching until it felt like the world itself had stopped. He buried her journal with her, but not before reading the last page. In her handwriting, shaky but clear, it said, "If you're reading this, it means I'm finally free. You gave me the best gift anyone ever could, Ethan. You gave me a life worth remembering. Don't spend your days missing me. Paint the sunsets I never got to see. Live for both of us." A year later, Ethan returned to the park. The bench was still there, their initials carved deep in the wood. The painting they'd left was gone, but in its place was a small plaque that read, "For anyone who still believes in beauty." Someone had kept it alive. He sat down, opened his sketchbook, and began to draw the sunset. The colors were just like that evening, gold, pink, and fire, alive and endless. He smiled through his tears, whispering, "Happy birthday, Mia." And for a moment, as the sky burned with color, he felt her there beside him, her laughter in the wind, her touch in the warmth of the light. The rain had stopped, and everything she ever loved was still here.